Hello world, welcome to the 198th video on my channel where I'm building my own digital assistant named Shane, like Jarvis from the Iron Man movies and comics. Please consider subscribing to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment. So a couple months ago I made this video right here, that way, yep. I made a video and basically I built my own Drudge Report clone website. And I used Beautiful Soup and Selenium to web scrape articles from my local news websites and then find only the ones that have finance terms in them. And then I passed them to a Python Flask website just on my local machine and created my own Drudge Report clone. If you're not familiar with Drudge Report, that's a popular conservative news website that just has a bunch of links to other news websites, and then he changes the headlines to use his spin. And so I just created my own, and so I was pretty proud of it. And then a couple weeks after that, I got this comment here saying that I shouldn't be using Beautiful Soup and Selenium at the same time, and that my code is probably slow, and I should be using a more modern Python library like Scrapy or Playwright, or even HTML requests. So in today's video, we're going to show you how to use Playwright, but to do that, I'm going to use ChatGPT to go through an attempt with Scrapy and then go through Playwright. And I want to show you how powerful ChatGPT is. And it can probably get you to the 35 to 85% mark, and then you just need to troubleshoot from there. And so that's what we're going to do in today's video. We'll start off in ChatGPT and start off with Scrapy, and then at the end, towards the end of the video, we'll go through how to properly use Playwright and this working code. So now let's go to ChatGPT. Okay, so now that we're in ChatGPT, and you can get there by going to chat.openai.com and creating your own signing up for it and then logging in. And so basically, I'm just going to say, can you rewrite this code using Scrapy? And then I'm going to copy and paste the code in here. Don't know why I capitalized and used a question mark. You don't really need to do that, but that's okay. And then we're going to see what it says. Now, I put in all the code, and so it's not going to do all of it for me. So unfortunately, it's not going to do the whole thing, because not all of it has to do with Beautiful Soup, but it is going to redo one of the URLs for me, that bowserpress.com. And so it's able to figure out what I'm trying to do and rewrites the code for me, which is pretty awesome. Now for this Bowser Press one, I didn't have to do any logic in there. And so all it did was figure out my code and give it to me. And then it provides some additional information as well. And so it's saying it's more complex to convert the whole script because it's more of using other libraries as well. And so since this is generative, right, ChatGPT, I can just ask it, can you do that for the other URLs? And it will go back and figure out what other URLs I had in that script and then find a new one. So that Shreveport Times in the news and business section, and rewrite the code for me there, which is so impressive. Instead of having to ask a very separate question and re-copying and pasting the code. And it even adds the additional logic that I had to put in there, which again, I just think it's really awesome that it's able to do that. And then it also tells you exactly what it did in there as well. So that's pretty awesome. We can try to use this code as is and see if it works. Alright, so I copy and pasted both the Bowser and the Shreveport codes from ChatGPT into PyCharm. And I know it's not going to work, but let's run it. There we go. We saw that we had some errors already, and that's not how you call a Scrapy code. But what we can do, and what I wanted to show off, is just like you would do this by yourself in Google, by Googling it, you can copy and paste this error. And I'm not going to specify anything else. I'm just going to copy and paste it there and see what it tells me. And so it is able to figure out what I'm talking about by saying, by that error alone, which is just a very cool version of Googling, and it's telling me that something about a typing extensions library is wrong. And so I know that that's not the cause because I did some off-camera research. But let's say we wanted to just keep on troubleshooting our code. So what we can do is go into PyCharm, and then we can go to settings. And then in our interpreter, we can look, make sure one, typing extensions is actually installed correctly and it's alphabetical. And we can see that it is version 4.40. So that's the latest version. And so that's not the one that we installed, but that is the latest version. And so sometimes just going in there and specifying a version before it might help. And so you could do that by clicking there, which I'm not going to do. I just wanted to show you the power. So moving away from scraping and using Playwright, and since we're switching a whole new library, I just want to focus on this one function right here where we're scraping the Bossier Press news site. So let's copy and paste this code, go back to ChatGPT, and say rewrite this code using Playwright instead of Beautiful Soup, just like we did with scraping. And it's going to rewrite the code using Playwright. And the beautiful thing about this ChatGPT is it gets you to the 45 to 85% solution. And then you can troubleshoot from there. And that saves quite a bit of time, either rewriting or writing a whole new code or rewriting another code that you found somewhere else. This gets you pretty close. And so now we have the completed code. And we can use this code and try it again, just like we did with scraping. So let's copy and paste this code. I could have just pressed copy code in the upper right, but I didn't. So here we go. I'm going to make a critical error. Oh wait, first we're going to import or pip install, if you will, the Playwright. So file settings. You can go to your command prompt and install it too using pip. That's fine. But we're going to install this. I did cut the code. This took a while to install, so that's not how quick it really installed. So now the error will go away once the package is installed successfully. And then I make a critical noob error by not calling the function. So let's run that. Yep. So didn't do anything because I didn't call the function. So let's try that again by calling the function. All right, there we go. Now let's run it. All right, so we got an error. And so this is just like you would use ChatGPT as you would Google. So you read the errors that you got, try to understand it. If you're familiar with the library, these might make sense. If not, you do what all coders do and you copy and paste. And since this is generative chat, it's going to understand that you got an error based off of what you just asked it to do. So it's able to figure out what that runtime warning is. Now it's telling me to import this new code and start it. So same thing, we're going to copy and paste it and maybe it'll work. Now, like I said, I'll show you at the end how to correctly use Playwright. So we missed some steps on installation, and this is kind of the trouble of using ChatGPT versus reading the documentation. So we've got another warning It's similar to the last one, right? It's another runtime warning. So, and you can see in PyCharm that launch is highlighted, so it's not even recognizing that method, but we haven't got to that error yet. So let's try this again and copy and paste this error into here and see what it tells us. So now it's saying that it's a different error, and to resolve this we need to use an event loop instead. All right, so this is a whole nother solution versus the using the trace mal loc library. But let's try it again. So first do the import statement, right? Async IO is standard in your standard library, so you don't have to import that or pip install it. So there we go. And we will erase that. And let's run this again. All right. And like I said, it already found the method that was wrong that I showed you is highlighted in PyCharm. So Playwright has no attribute launch. All right, same thing. Copy and paste it into the code and see what it tells us to. Now the cool thing with this is it says that that the old code was deprecated and we have to use a new instance of Playwright in a new mode, and then it's going to rewrite the whole code with me based off of this conversation history. So it rewrote the whole thing for me just like before. Okay, now same thing. Let's delete all of this since it basically rewrote everything for us. So get rid of that. Now let's use the copy code function. There we go. Let's paste that in and let's run it. But now you can see .sync is, that method is highlighted. So assuming that this is not going to work again, so let's run it. See that .sync is no module named sync. Run it and surprise, no module named playwright.sync. So this is the last time I'll show, so it doesn't get too repetitive for you. But basically it's going to rewrite the code all the way back to the original one that we had. And now we're in what many of us programmers fall into, and that is a error feedback loop where you get an error, you fix an error, it creates an error, you fix that one, you have another error. And to correct the next one, it brings you all the way back to the beginning. So you're in some sort of feedback loop, meaning you've done something wrong and you probably need to read some documentation. So let's watch it do that. And this is the same exact code as before. So I did some off-camera research, and I think we're supposed to be using Playwright, or what I saw, this one right here, sync_API. So let's try that again. I know this isn't going to work, but let's just try it anyway. So you can see kind of the limitations of ChatGPT and why it's not ready to replace coders yet. So now it's bringing me back to Playwright, and it's not using the method I asked it to. It's giving me some new code that we haven't seen yet. But again, I know this isn't going to work because we didn't install Playwright correctly and it missed that step. It hasn't recommended that step to me yet. And so it rewrote the code. You can copy and paste it. And there we go. PyCharm has already recognized that that launch method doesn't work. And the playwright.sync_API is not even used. I can try to import playlist, but at this point I know it's not going to work. And so just wanted to show you kind of the limitations of ChatGPT in this sense. Okay, so this is the last ChatGPT error that I'll show you. So I just have some more errors. I'm going to redo it. But this time, instead of telling me to, or instead of redoing the code for me, it's going to explain the error to me, recommend that I change something, but it's going to tell me to read the manual. So read the documentation. And I said it before, but in the beginning days, read the effing manual is what people used to respond on Stack Overflow. And look at that, ChatGPT. Okay, so now we're outside of ChatGPT. And now I'm going to show you how to correctly use Playwright. So you go to File Settings, we've done this before, and you install Playwright, just like we've done previously. But another thing you need to do is you need to do something called Playwright install, and that installs all of the different web browsers that you need to successfully use Playwright. So to do that, you can just go to Terminal right here. And now you can do pip install Playwright from here too if you don't want to go through your settings. That's fine too. But from here, you're going to go Playwright install, and it's going to install Firefox, Safari, Chromium, Linux, and another one I can't remember. So just Playwright install, press enter, and now this from playwright.sync API is going to work. So I'm not going to go into the whole code as much as I did in the video where I created it, but for Playwright, we're going to skip this finance terms. I'll just explain through it. So we have our URL that we're going to be scraping, which is Bossier Press. So with sync Playwright, call it as P, right? And that's what we imported here. Browser equals p.chromium.launch, call that. I like Chromium for all my web scraping processes. Then you're going to do page equals browser.newPage, call that. Then page.go to the URL. The URL is right here. That's the one we've been working on this whole video. And so the code that I found on ChatGPT wasn't all that wrong. It just needed some minor improvements with the documentation. So, and what I'm assuming is the author chose not to use this camel casing and instead to use the more modern underscore. So let me show you a quick troubleshooting technique. So let's go articles equals page.query page.query selector all. So that used to be the former code right there. And so as you can see, PyCharm cannot find it. And it's probably because this camel casing is no longer modern. So what you can do is type your method and just find it yourself. And it'll find it if you successfully imported the library, right? So that's how I figured out that it was this new underscore way of doing it. And then I just used the scrapey code or the Playwright code that ChatGPT gave me. This was an exception to the get attribute, again, the camel casing. And so same thing, I just press article dot and it found the new get underscore attributes. And then basically if the title in this website, if the title is none, it's going to, if it's not none, I should say. So if there's a title, it's going to create a dictionary. And then if the word is in these finance terms, it's going to save that title into this, this right here, the article data, the title and the link, into a list, an empty list called Bossier article list, and it's going to append it to that. So this, for some reason, when I scrape, it finds doubles. So all I'm saying, if the article data is already in this list, pass it. That way I'm only getting a single one. Then we're going to close, right? We're going to close this right here with sync as P. and then we're going to return the Bowser article list. And just for your purposes, this isn't how I'm using it in the web in my website, but list equals the function, and then we printed the list. And so now we can run it and watch it work. It's going to go to that website, Bowser Press. It's going to look at the titles and find the words that are finance terms. And then it's going to give me the title and URL for each of those. And then if you watch my previous video, I passed those title and URLs to Flask to show in a drudge report clone. So here we go. Here's a title, here's a URL, here's a title, and here's a URL. And that's how you use Playwright. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was half Playwright and half ChatGPT. Please leave a comment if you're using GPT, and thanks for watching this. Goodbye, world.